Oh, hi.
On December 31st, 1999 at 11:59 p.m., I sat trembling in my room, awaiting the annihilation of the world. I closed my
Oh,
eyes, ready for
Y2K.
the alien mothership to appear in the night sky, for computers to come alive and implode the very fabric of society. Y2K was going to kill us
Yeah,
all. Mr. Jones down the
Y2K.
street built a bunker underneath his house and told us if we didn't do the same, the first blast from the alien mothership would incinerate us. As the seconds counted down, I squeezed my eyes as hard as I could and braced myself for the alien takeover. But as the clock struck midnight, nothing happened. When I opened my eyes at 12:01 a.m., it wasn't alien motherships I saw, or computers exploding that I heard, but instead an ensemble of banging pots and pans.
Yeah.
Doomsday,
Have
despite
a good night,
worldwide
Aqua.
hysteria, turned out to be one of history's greatest flukes. I was alive. The
Yeah.
infamous Y2K scare is one of those moments in time that felt very anticlimactic, despite the terrible thought that I was going to be burned to a crisp.
Yeah, for those who don't know, the Y2K scare, people were afraid when the clock struck midnight for 2000s. I think it was they were afraid that the computers couldn't handle that essentially, and it would literally just turn into gridlock and things would be going sideways essentially. And since back in 1999, a lot of our stuff that that we're on is on computers now. It would just literally just everything would go to a standstill, and it never happened. I think Best Buy even had like a little pamphlet or a little reminder to be like, turn off your computer at midnight and stuff like that. Yeah, the amount of work that happened. Yeah, I think yeah, they were trying to like what, because I don't remember. I don't remember the efforts and stuff like that. I do remember like people were talking about it, but yeah.
At least it was
So I was a
something
kid back then.
exciting. As a teenager during the 90s, I had dreams of a futuristic society by the turn of the decade. One of flying cars, robots, laser guns, and space jumping into new galaxies like I saw in Star Wars. You know, all the cool shit that you saw in movies like Independence Day and Terminator 2.
Yeah.
I dreamed, oh yes I did, I dreamed about flying to Mars and waking up next to Sharon Stone after watching Total Recall. When nothing happened and the world went back to its same old boring self, I felt utterly disappointed. So I did the only thing I could. I popped in a copy of Back to the Future that I had re-recorded over my dad's VHS tape labeled Sports Illustrated Swimsuit Contest, grabbed a pack of sour warheads from my secret stash, and fell asleep shortly after reading the
man.
latest episode of EGM. When I woke up the next day, little did I know that I'd be glad Y2K didn't kill us all, because this decade would be one of, if not the best eras.
Oh, it was a binary rest clocks that was from 19. Oh, okay, which would have cut. Yeah, okay. Gotcha. That's what it was. So instead of going 2000, it would just reset like 0000, and it would just be like, what the fuck?
For video games, ever. Just about everything you could possibly think
Jack and
of that was
fucking
exciting happened in
Dexter!
the 2000s, and this was a 10-year period where video game culture exploded like I never thought it was possible. In the 90s, video games were just getting a foothold into a society where people spent most of their time outside. I was a dork, and I had my dorky friends, and we had our GoldenEye tournaments high up in my tree fort. We pinned up a wooden sign carved "No Girls Allowed," but beyond this tree fort, our gaming garage setup, and the odd trip to the local arcade, this was my entire gaming world. But when 2000 came around, it wouldn't just be us dorks playing video games into the starry night. Games would dig their clutches into the very fabric of the world. And that is no understatement. Games and tech advanced so suddenly that it's very difficult to comprehend how fast time seemed to fly during this 10-year window. All sorts of crazy new genres began to pop up. Game design
Pikmin,
fundamentally changed given increased hardware capacity in broader markets. There were
It was crazy that gaming in the 90s was so different than gaming in 2000s. Like, the technological jump of what you can have as what you could do in video games was so massive. It was like the holy shit moment, essentially. It was basically and that's how we got like so many different genres of games now, because you can actually create these games essentially. Like right now, we're not really at a crossroads of gaming right now, because we've expanded so far that any improvements seem minimal. Like, but growing up, these were like major improvements that just keep happening and happening.
so many systems with varying features and hardware and all sorts of weird controllers, online features, and a lot of gimmicks. This was the decade of innovation. The landslide of gaming popularity began the very first year of the decade when Sony launched the PlayStation 2 in October. In
Oh,
the
yeah.
90s, if you wanted a Nintendo 64, you could go out and buy it. You might have to visit a few stores, but if you had the cheddar, you were getting the system. But not with a PlayStation 2. The PlayStation 2 was the system that began the trend of having to show up at a store the day beforehand and see if people were waiting outside in line already. I know this
Yeah.
because I actually had to camp out overnights at Walmart to get one.
Oh
I
my
shit you
God.
not. I stood next to a reeking dumpster outside the building for 18 hours to get the PlayStation 2. This was the
Jesus.
first time I ever experienced anything like this.
We got a PS2 on launch, I believe, or near launch. And my dad, I think we picked it up at the exchange, the Navy exchange, basically, on base. But the crazy thing about the PS2 was, which a lot of Dreamcast or Sega fans hated, was it was like a glorified DVD player because not many people, like, DVDs were slowly coming out, and the PS2 was able to play DVDs. So it was like the holy shit moment, Like, but it also played video games.
Truth be told, I nearly froze to death overnight like a popsicle. And food? I'd rather starve to death before leaving the line. I damn well nearly pissed myself too. Only 8 of the 60 people lined up got a system that morning.
Really?
The rest left embarrassed. That's how far gaming had come in just a few short years.
Damn.
Video games weren't just Nintendo games anymore. The PlayStation was one of the most successful gaming consoles of all time, but you didn't have to risk getting mugged if you zonked out for a second in a shady parking lot just to get it. But when 2000 came to a close, gaming would spread through the world like a wildfire.
Oh god, yeah.
There were several reasons for this. First, gaming had become way more than the beeps and bots of its heydays. Pong was out, high-definition 3D graphics were in, with new controllers, better performance, and online play. The most important thing was you didn't need to be a gamer to recognize and appreciate games during the 2000s, whereas you wouldn't know what the hell you were looking at if you were in the 80s and you were not a gamer. You had to have an extreme amount of imagination to play an Atari game, for example. Getting your grandma to understand what the hell was happening in this screen of Sword Quest was like trying to explain what the meaning of life was to an orangutan. In the 2000s though, people, real non-gaming people, could actually look at a TV and see the difference in video game genres now. And with new controllers and lots of new options, it was easier to play them too. Not everyone could play Ghouls and Ghosts in the 80s, but everyone could play Wii Sports in 2006.
Oh,
the first few months of the
Wii
2000s
Sports.
were simply nuts.
Jesus.
The Dreamcast was the last system launched in the 90s, and it was incredibly underrated.
99,
it would eventually be
99.
discontinued in March of the following year, but it would deliver some amazing titles up into its demise. Just in the first 30 days of the year, the Dreamcast
Crazy
launched
Taxi!
Crazy Taxi, Legacy of Kain, Soul Reaver, and what I consider the greatest Resident Evil game ever made, Code Veronica, followed by Dead or Alive 2, Rayman 2, Skies of Arcadia, Jet Set Radio, and Grandia 2, just to name a couple. Not to mention
Phantasy Star Online, Shenmue. Like, the Dreamcast, no one really, the PS2 definitely overshadowed the Dreamcast. Like, the Dreamcast literally had a small window to make an impact. And to Sega, this was like their console to be like, we were making up for the shit and shenanigans we did with the Saturn. So this is going to be our, like, we're all in on this. But they had a small window before PlayStation released the PS2, and it overshadowed it, essentially. It was like, the Dreamcast ended up being Sega's swan song, but my god, it was one hell of a swan song.
Shenmue, which had just launched 3 days before Y2K, which was one of the most hyped games ever. You want to talk about a console that was all about the games? The Dreamcast was not f***ing around. Sadly, when the PlayStation 2 hit in October, interest plummeted so hard that Sega was forced to throw in the towel, marking the end of one of the coolest game systems ever made. But not without last one hurrah. And that game was Phantasy Star Online.
Exactly.
I can't even describe how wild it was to play an online RPG on a console on launch as a kid in 2000.
The Dreamcast had a 56K modem port in it, but you could also buy a Ethernet port as upgrade too. So yeah, the console was literally ready for anything essentially. Like online, like console multiplayer. I think there was one other game. I think the SNES beat it out, but the Dreamcast was the more known and established console multiplayer that kind of first started coming in because of Phantasy Star Online.
It was like being in a dream. Prior to the Dreamcast, you couldn't really play games online unless you bought weird adapters like the Sega Saturn Netlink, which nobody did. It was literally the first system with a built-in modem. I had been playing a few games online for a few years now on my PC like Diablo 1, but
Yeah.
nothing like the power of 128 bits. With the Dreamcast, you could plop yourself down on a couch and game online while scarfing down Pringles. I mean, this was avant-garde gaming at its finest. It was ghetto and slower than cows, but hey, it was real. I lost myself in games like Choo Choo Rocket, Ooga Booga, and Bomberman Online. Can you
Bomberman.
believe
Oh
this
my
is an
god.
actual race? A 4x4 Evo played on Sega Nets 23 years ago? It's insane.
Damn.
But nothing really compared to
People
Phantasy
still play
Star
online.
Online. It was the first online console game that really hooked me, and I remember how surreal it was walking around town seeing actual real-life people in a console game, then walking out into the forest and gunning down monsters and watching other people do the same but with laser swords. And you could actually type to people if you had the Dreamcast keyboard. If you
Oh,
had the
man.
Dreamcast mouse as well, you can play Quake and Unreal Tournaments
Damn,
online.
yeah.
Again, it was jank, but this is where it all started. And there's something really special about being part of a revolution, an inception, in the moment, at that time, despite how ghetto it was. The saying that you just had to have been there is real.
Yeah.
Of course, online gaming was very niche and very pricey, because families didn't want you holding the phone line hostage.
Yeah.
Especially if the Dreamcast was in another room from the phone line.
Yeah. Again, 56 came out and used the phone line. And if you went online with it, no one could make a phone call. You can't receive calls. So it was like one of those things like, hey, if someone's playing online or someone's going online, you can't make phone calls and shit. So it was like the ultimate balancing act. Or, hey, mom's on phone call, but you want to, play online real quick. Mom, get out the phone. It was like that. I honestly
Where you
like
have
that.
to drag the cable across the house to connect it, essentially creating a 30-foot tripwire of death. God forbid if anyone hit
Yep.
that thing, they'd crash to the ground and
Been
break
there,
their
done
head.
that. Been there, done that,
Eventually,
baby.
other consoles would catch up to the online scene, namely the Xbox. When the Xbox released in November of 2001, it would officially declare war with the PlayStation 2, which had come out 1 year before. The
Yeah.
Xbox was pretty damn amazing, and unlike today, they actually had a lot of
Republic
great first-party
Commando.
titles. Most importantly, it allowed for broadband connectivity and included a hard drive disk for storage. Two things that crippled online play for the Dreamcast, not to mention negated the rather annoying prospect of having to insert those fat, stupid memory
Yep.
cards into the controller. Those things nearly gave me carpal tunnel. Many Xbox games had online functionality when they released into Xbox Live in 2002, including fighting, racing, shooting, and many off-colored game modes like
Oh, Conker's
Competitive
back.
Conquer or
Yeah.
Spies vs. Mercs for Chaos Theory.
Oh my god. So Xbox Live never came out when the Xbox original came out. They had to delay it. Like the Xbox was essentially almost ready to have it, but it never, they never got it ready in time. Like Halo Combat Evolved was supposed to have online multiplayer. That's why, back then we used something called Xbox Connect, where we tricked the Xbox thinking it was in a LAN setup, but in reality, the computer was acting kind of like as a browser, and we were just like enabling the Xbox Connect to the computer and be like, okay, find these servers, and that's how we did some multiplayer matches. And granted, it wasn't perfect because some of the matches were lag fest, but others absolutely beautiful. And the one game that was played a lot was Halo Combat Evolved. So
This one game truly defined my year like no other. You
Oh,
simply don't
yeah.
get these types of creative online experiences today.
Yeah,
There was even a
Spice and
Far
Mercs.
Cry game called Instincts that you can play online, and a Forza game that was actually
Yep.
really fun. You could even play poker online with randos with World Poker Tour. One game that was also really popular was, of
Star
course,
Wars
Battlefront 2 for the
Battlefront
Xbox,
2,
where you have
yeah!
massive battles rage on into the night. And let me tell you, people were hyped as shit for this one.
Oh,
But
hell
the most
yeah.
popular game on the Xbox had to be Unreal Championship, the console version of Unreal Tournament. If you never played Quake on PC in the 90s, this was an experience to be had.
An arena
To a kid
shooter,
who had
baby.
only been playing couch co-op his whole life on console, it felt like an out-of-body
That was before Halo 2 came out.
Toe-to-toe with some random kid in Queens and know that when you teabagged him after you killed him, he absolutely saw it.
Yep. The most popular, the games I played back when Xbox Live was, was out and stuff like that. Mech Assault, I loved. Crimson Skies, Return to Castle Wolfenstein, Tides of War. And then later on, Mech Assault 2, Dead or Alive Ultimate, Ghost Recon 2. Same name of food, but Halo 2 when that came out, it was like everyone got an Xbox or Halo 2 to play online.
But honestly, the most fun I ever had playing with other people in the
Yeah, Dead Alive
2000s
Ultimate.
wasn't online.
Yeah.
It was System Link and LAN parties.
Ooh.
The Xbox came
Yes.
with the ability to
Yes.
connect 4 consoles together with 4 TVs, allowing 16 players to play together at the same time.
Hell
It was
yeah.
absolutely insane. My friends and I hosted game fests at each other's houses all the time, and we'd order pizza and soda until the cows came home. And
Yep.
Xbox had the best game for System Link, Halo.
Halo.
And we only played one game mode, which was 16-player CTF on Blood Gulch. And our
Oh,
battles went far
yes.
into the night until our parents threatened to come downstairs and beat the shit out of us for being so loud.
Oh
When the
my
smoke
god.
cleared, we sat there drenched in sweat, hoarse to the bone from screaming, with piles of cheese breadcrumbs running down the sides of our asses. The marinara had been spilled hours ago and no one seemed to notice.
Halo was the game to play in a lamp. I wish more systems would do this. Hold on here, I've got something caught on my eye. I wish more games would support LAN network. And why are we here, Tucker? Red versus blue reference. But nowadays, a lot of games, when it comes to multiplayer, they don't do LAN. They just connect online. I wish games would support LAN functionality. Hell, PC, you could go online, or you could do a LAN setup, which was fucking perfect because we played StarCraft in the LAN or Counter Strike.
And honestly,
Halo,
we didn't care. It wasn't our house anyway. It was just pure chaotic fun that no one ever today could understand unless you were there. And the same goes for LAN parties, where you have kids bring over their PCs to each other's houses and hook them up for fat battles of Warcraft 3 and Tribes 2. Dude.
Ooh. Okay, so just a FYI, cable management, we plugged it in. There was nothing neat about this. So this whole room right here, because of all the PCs and shit, the CRT monitors, actually, I think that's an LCD screen right there. This shit would get hot fucking quick.
Each other's houses and favorite futuristic jetpack team
Tribes
shooter, and you could land
fucking
with up to 128 people or bots.
Fucking
it was
hell.
Incredible. This trend of couch co-op and landing itself, though, wouldn't
Total
last
War
forever.
Shogun!
As online features
Yeah.
became more mainstream and society became addicted to social media, Facebook, and computers, traditional co-op games became few and far between, and LANs became yearly tournaments like QuakeCon.
Yeah.
In fact, game genres became quite specialized as the new systems migrated towards their own targeted demographics. Microsoft and Sony would be great rivals throughout the 2000s, and even to this day, the feud is ongoing. They vie for the same space more or less in the gaming markets, offering modern gaming experiences with mature rated video game titles.
Fun fact, the reason why Grand Theft Auto never came out on Xbox originally, because Microsoft thought it was just going to be a meh game. Until they realized it, absolutely was one of the best games of its era. And they're like, oh shit, we need this game on our consoles. Yeah, that was a pretty interesting fun fact. And now Microsoft has effectively thrown the towel. The console wars is now over. It's basically PlayStation.
Xbox offered more services on its online platform.
Ooh, is that
and more
Crackdown?
features,
Yeah,
but
Crackdown.
content-wise,
Jesus.
you can generally find similar styles of games on both systems.
Yep.
It's interesting, though not peculiar, that Nintendo decided very on not to take part in the rat race and focused instead on light-hearted games like Mario, Metroid, Kirby, and Zelda. Those games are for everyone. And with interesting controller setups like the Wiimote, you'd never find violent action games, standard FPS games, or controversial titles like The Last of Us on Nintendo consoles. When most people talk about the popularity of gaming, they often say that Microsoft and Sony have the most players and that Nintendo has always been trailing behind, but that couldn't be more far from the truth in the 2000s.
Very far.
In fact, of the 10 top-selling games of the decade, 8 were from Nintendo, and the top 7...
Wait.
In fact, of the 10 top-selling games of the decade,
82.8 million copies of Wii Sports. Holy fuck. And Wii Sports came with the Wii. So when you bought a Wii, you already got a game with it. And Wii Sports ended up being fantastic, which to this day, I still have a copy, by the way. But bowling was my top favorite, followed by tennis and baseball.
decade, 8 were from Nintendo,
Mario Kart
and
Wii,
the top 7 are all from Nintendo. The only
Jesus.
game franchise that came close was Grand Theft Auto. And if you look at the top 30
Holy
top-selling games of the
shit.
2000s, Nintendo holds 19. The highest-selling game
Holy
was Wii
shit.
Sports, in fact, with 82 million units sold, which was, for the time, the highest-selling video game ever. Eventually, it would be overthrown by Minecraft and GTA 5, but during the 2000s, Nintendo was one of the top dogs, releasing 4 really great platforms: the Game Boy
Metroid
Advance,
Prime.
the GameCube, the the Wii, and the Nintendo DS. I personally think the GameCube is one of the best systems to ever hit the scene. Although the GameCube fell into last place in the race, it's the most critically under-acclaimed system next to the DC. It was
Honestly, the GameCube was a good system. It was a home console. It was like the games that came out for it, including Smash Bros. Melee, which, woo, yeah, Smash Brothers again, like the Legend of Zelda, Super Mario Sunshine, and all that shit. The first party games were fucking excellent. Luigi's Mansion, and then the third party games, including Resident Evil 4. Holy, like GameCube itself, the console made, even though it came in last, it made a huge fucking impact.
a little purple box of creativity with a cute handle, but at its heart, it was a pulsating volcano of awesomeness.
Yeah.
Unlike the Wii, which was for everyone, including your grandma, the GameCube was actually still a console for hardcore gamers.
Yeah.
With it came an interesting controller that was perfect for the new creative 3D titles it would house. Predating the somewhat gimmicky era of motion controls and the shackles of capitalistic game regurgitation, the GameCube was a treasure box full of
Luigi's
many games
Mansion,
that have become long-standing staples in gaming culture. Just flipping through a little bit of the gold brings me back to a time where gaming was truly at its peak with some of the best Nintendo first-party titles ever made. You pretty much got everything with the Cube. All the great first-party titles, M-rated smashers like Killer 7 and Eternal Darkness, the best Paper Mario game, kart racers, really good Star Wars games, and one of the best soccer games ever made. GameCube titles truly made unimaginable things happen while nailing the design and the gameplay of their titles, and I always thought the mini discs they came on were really cute, even though the tech of the Cube was actually one of the reasons it's viewed as a commercial failure, despite being one of the best systems ever for gamers. The PS2 and the Xbox had DVD players, which at the time was very cost-effective, practical, and offered more capacity for the third-party scene, while the GameCube had a handle. It made the system look like a breadbasket.
I mean, yeah, the PS2 you can play DVDs out of the box. The Xbox you had to buy like this, like a little upgrade, like a little device that attaches to it, and you got like a DVD remote, and then you could play DVDs. But yeah, GameCube was just purely a gaming system, and there was also an Ethernet port add-on you can buy to go online. That's how we played. We played Phantasy Star Online on the GameCube, and it was fucking fantastic. Yeah, like Nintendo back in the with the GameCube, it was like, no, this is a fucking gaming console, which I still respect. Nintendo be like, listen, even though they did this weird hybrid handheld home console, at the end of the day, they're like, no, it's a gaming console. It's like, we make this to play video games.
More importantly, it also had no support for online play and the perception of being less powerful.
No, it had support. It was
an
add-on.
In the 2000s, graphics were a really big part of gaming discourse, and it was often just as important to have really good-looking titles.
Okay, there was support. You had to buy an attachment, but not a lot of games supported it. So let me correct myself there.
As it was to have really good playing titles to attract buyers who were on the fence. And GameCube titles looked, on average, worse than the really pretty shiny graphics of Xbox and such. And that's a shame because I think the Nintendo GameCube was an absolute rock star of a system. Either way, Nintendo would make much more headway with the Wii in 2006, selling 5 times as many consoles as the GameCube.
Yeah. The Wii was
another enormous trend from the 2000s was the evolution of PC gaming. By the end of the 90s, several blockbuster online games had come into the scene like StarCraft, Diablo, Warcraft 3, and several big-time RPGs and all the competitive shooters like Unreal Tournament. When Diablo 2 came out in 2000, though, it was clear that PC gaming was not just here to stay, but a force to be reckoned with. I can't even describe how much of my life I put into this one single game, just trying to find a win force, which has eluded me to this day. I wish I could have some of those hours of my life back, I was so addicted. Yeah. But it wasn't just Diablo that burst into the scene. As I said before, a cornucopia of games flooded the decade, and it wasn't long before there were so many games available that you couldn't possibly play them all. In just a few short years, PC fans got Counter-Strike, Deus Ex, Knights of the Old Republic, Half-Life, Half-Life 2, Oblivion, Morrowind, Max Payne, and so many more games that are still held in high regard today.
Yeah.
The variety was truly incredible, starting a new trend in getting games into the hands of so many different people. It wasn't just the nerds playing games anymore like the 90s. The most important game of the 2000s though, was arguably The Sims. Having gotten my first PC soon after, I can say The Sims was one.
My whole family was addicted to this game. My whole fucking family. Like, my mom did not play a lot of video games. Like, she loved Tetris a lot. Like, Tetris was a big thing for my mom. But Other than that, she never really played video games. It was just me, my dad, and my sister. But The Sims, it was like a united. The whole family loved playing The Sims. Every one of us loved playing The Sims.
One of the coolest and most messed up and fucked up games I've ever played. This is a game where you take control of a bunch of people as they go about their day. You start by making a house, then you have to feed your family, shower
Yep.
them, make friends, go to work, maintain your relationships,
Oh yeah.
water your plants, invest in stocks, invite friends over, and all this other weird stuff. You can see the requirements in the bottom right of the screen. These are all the things you have to micromanage. That includes hygiene, so yes, you have to watch your character take a dump in the toilet. As a kid, this was kinda nasty. The same went for how your house could start looking like a landfill if you didn't take care of it. If you didn't take out your trash or wash your dishes, your house would start smelling like a garbage dump. And if you didn't bang your
Yeah.
wife, she wouldn't love you anymore. Yes, you can watch your character have sex as the little pixels go humpy humpy. And if you
Yeah.
didn't take care of your kids, Child Protective Services would show up and
Yeah.
take them away.
The first Sims game was really, they had a lot of depth to it, and the second one too, arguably. Like Sims 4 is, I would, the Sims 4 is more of a watered down Sims game because when it came out, it was just so fucking bare bones. They had to add so many things to it, and then when they made these expansion packs and all that damn shit, some of the stuff should have been in the base game to begin with. And we still don't have, like in the Sims 4, burglars would come in or stuff like that. There's the other things that were missing too. But the Sims 1 and 2, holy shit, they were
Again, as a kid, this was
fantastic.
so surreal to me. You can even set your house on fire and
Yep.
kill everyone. It's truly one of the weirdest games I've ever seen, and I can't even believe it got made. But it got so many people into gaming during a period where just a few years beforehand, they looked down on such a media because it was chill and required basically no skill. With just
Yep.
a little bit of attention, anyone can play The Sims and have a good time with it. It was approachable, understandable,
Yeah,
and easy to
cars.
use,
Yeah, you get picked up by a
aka
car, yeah.
accessible, one of the trends that would alter the fortunes of gaming to this very day. These kinds of games were everywhere in the 2000s, like Roller Coaster Tycoon, but there was also tons of stuff for other types of
Yep.
players too. All sorts of complex simulation games like EVE
Oh, Eve.
Online,
Oh, yeah,
online
shit.
shoot 'em ups, puzzlers, role-playing games, MMOs, and creative genre breakers like Guitar Hero and Dance Dance
Guitar
Revolution.
Hero,
Talk about
DDR,
bridging the gap
yeah.
between gamers and watchers. And then there were really niche titles like Black and White, which was my first
Oh
God
my
game. I'm not even sure what
God,
this game was all
Jesus
about.
Christ.
And Sacrifice was the other game that just blew my mind. Again, another new age fusion game blending combat, action, and RTS. This particular game was so fascinating to me because as a kid, I couldn't even have dreamed up a concept like this. Just to nail this point home, this was the decade that Beautiful Joe
Beautiful
and
Joe,
Pikmin
yeah!
launched on GameCube and Okami for the PlayStation 2. There were so many weird and wonderful types of games. The 90s seemed so simple compared to all this.
Yeah,
Like I
well,
said,
yeah.
it was the era of
Definitely.
innovation.
Holy shit.
One such creative title that introduced in 2000
oh, wait,
called
was this-
No One Lives Forever
Yep.
shows a very different side to the FPS than you'd ever find today. This era was all about taking chances, but this wouldn't last forever. Far into the next decade, more aggressive business practices
Yeah.
encouraged copycat game
Fuck.
development.
Yeah.
For-profit incentives like overly monetizing titles and stuffing all sorts of in-game stores and pre-order bonuses into the mix. This was a good way to get more money for every dollar spent, but its ethics are questionable.
Oh, Jesus Christ. All these microtransactions, you know why it happened? This. Back then, games, when extra content was made, it was usually an expansion pack. And it was like a full-fledged thing. Fucking Bethesda and their golden horse armor bullshit started the whole microtransactions thing. Because I forgot what it was sold for. I think it was like what, 5 or 10. I think it was like $5 or $10. But this started it all.
Regardless, it's landed us where we are today, where every game seems like it's trying to shoot for the financial stars. But in the 2000s, every single genre had its day, from kart racers to 4X strategy games to
Yep.
Sudoku sex anime games and everything else you could think of. Though the
I know what I'm
popularity of
talking
some of
about.
those
Yep.
would wane as the decade went on, like beat 'em ups, point and clicks, and of course, the once beloved platformer that we all know and love. And honestly, arcades too, unfortunately, would be left in the dust given the popularity and availability of
Yeah.
consoles, online gaming, and PC gaming. By
Yeah, honestly, because of how gaming grew, especially with consoles and then, multiplayer games, couch co-op or multiplayer or even online multiplayer, the arcade scene started fading hard. Like the late 90s, early 2000s was like the last limelight essentially for arcades.
2009, you could play a game with anyone from anywhere, from the
Yep.
comfort of your own couch, have a
Yeah.
friends list, and chat online or even voice chat, all while playing
Ooh,
games
Burnout.
that in no way, shape, or form are representative of today's most popular. You have to understand that during the 2000s, gaming culture wasn't anything like it is today. There weren't any MOBAs, or Battle Royale games, or
No.
Minecraft or
No.
Overwatches. Those games came in the following decade. You didn't stream, Twitch wasn't founded yet, you didn't have smartphones for games until the very end of the decade. YouTube was just starting up, and this idea of online communities among games wasn't really a thing yet. Reddit was also very new and underutilized. It was game sites like Game Trailers that were popular,
Yes. Yes. Fucking yeah, Game Trailers was literally the community website if you were a gamer. And the website was all dedicated to just having game trailers, but they had a lot more things, including forums and everything, these community features. You can you can buy merch or earn merch and say I miss game trailers so fucking much. It was a fantastic fucking website.
Internet news tycoon YouTubers. People discussing the games industry in provocative and lucrative ways wasn't really a thing. There was no lavish monetization in gaming, no battle passes, no season passes,
nothing.
no loot
Just
boxes.
here's the game, enjoy.
Like that. You might have a couple things you could buy, but all of that was yet to come. In the early days, it was more or less no drama, all fun.
Yep.
Several big games had giant communities though. Iconic titles like RuneScape and World of Warcraft, EverQuest 2 would pretty much take over the lives of innocent kids across the world, including myself. Counter-Strike was insanely popular, but MMOs were the most powerful games by far on PC. This iconic picture showcases the insanity, 10 million active subscribers per month at the turn of the decade.
Oh my, yeah. I remember, freaking Blizzard was like, made, were like when WoW came out, it was like, holy shit. And then Burning Crusade and everything, it was like the game to play. And they were like, Blizzard was up in the marketing to be like 10 now, World of Warcraft now 10 million players strong, which is like a size of a small country basically, which is fucking nuts. And oh my god, look at this, Mr. Pandera. It went down, then it rose up for, oh god, yeah, it dipped down below 10. But yeah, at one point we had over almost 12 million players playing World of Warcraft.
That's $150 million in revenue each month, ongoing for a decade. Can you imagine that kind of cheddar? World of Warcraft not only paved the groundworks for the modern MMO, but it changed the face of cooperative and online play forever.
It did.
Not just PvP gameplay like Counter-Strike. WoW is a social game. You can talk to people to get groups, you could trade, run dungeons, do PvP, or craft and exploit the in-game economy with the auction house, all while interacting with other players in any way you wanted. Whereas games could be beaten in a single sitting in the 90s, you could essentially play WoW forever. It became the norm
and with communities and stuff like that nowadays, you know, you had Discords, websites, and shit like that. Back then, there was no Discord. Back then, someone would have to pay for a server in like Ventrilo or TeamSpeak to have like a community set up and shit like that, or host a server to do that. But yeah, it was literally that. It was, but back then it was harder to grow a community. But it was, I feel like it was like more tight knit back then.
The 2000s to save games and come back later to them, especially given how consoles had either internal hard drives or memory cards now. This had a large effect on the evolution of video game difficulty. But having a character in a living, breathing, ongoing world was simply on another level though. There was no end screen and you never see the words game over. You were the character and the world was yours, but it would come at a cost. World of Warcraft came with an upfront cost, plus $15 a month for your subscription. I played WoW for 10 years, which means I forked over almost $2,000 for this game. It damn near bankrupted me, and in my addiction I ended up homeless, living in a casino hotel, gambling my nights away to afford my room. This was definitely a turning point for gaming, caused primarily by the new age of subscriptions. The only other things the game had leading up to subscriptions were expansion packs, but even then you only had to buy it once. Subscriptions never ended, which led to DLC, which led to in-game stores, which paved the way for microtransactions, which led to seasons, which ignited the pre-order bonus online culture where you can pay $20 more to play a game a week before everyone else, which has led to us changing the way game progression systems are now designed, which brings you up to today, where you're never really sure if you're getting everything you should be when you fork over the money. Step back and look at modern
Yeah.
gaming from a peanut gallery, and you'll see the monetization buffet feasting on an industry driven by big business, that's for sure. But when you bought a game in the 2000s, you pretty much got the whole game.
Yeah, feature
WoW had a
complete. Yep.
subscription, but there was never a moment where you questioned the ethics of its content. WoW was generous and
So,
large. It wasn't
is this
selling
what I think
boosters
it
or
is?
max level characters or cosmetics in the store. And content wasn't ripped out of
It's
the
not
base
Guild
game to
Wars, is
use
it?
as
No, it's not Guild
DLC.
Wars, right?
At least it didn't seem like that, and that goes for basically every other
Red
game I
Faction,
played.
baby!
I never got the suspicion that games are being chopped
Crisis.
up behind the scenes. Finding a game, especially on the console, ransacked with in-game monetization was like trying to find a needle in a haystack. Games may have been shitty, but if you bought a game, you were getting the full package.
Yep.
A lot of people tend to look back and say that older games were better, but if you actually lived through the 2000s, you'd find tons of crappy games, just like today. They were more feature completes, but I could show you 100 bad games from this decade. But you
Oh,
only need to
God.
look at something like Simpsons Wrestling or Batman Dark Tomorrow. Anyone could tell just from this footage that these games are diarrhea city. But it wasn't just these
Yep.
games, there were tons of issues across all genres. Terrible movie adaptations, horrible ports given the
Oh,
variance of
yeah.
new PC hardware, and lots of control issues. When you have an era of innovation, there are always going to be a bunch of turds floating around. And you have to remember that refunding games wasn't as available as it is today. There weren't Steam refunds, and if you
No.
opened a box at your store, you probably wouldn't get back what you paid for it.
No.
Hell, one time, Walmart made me open the copy of Superman 64 I brought back to return and plug it into their display unit and show them my save file just so they could see if I had played the game. I felt so embarrassed because I did play the game, I just wanted to return it because it was shit. There was a lot of
Oh,
rest-playing games, no
man,
doubt, and a
damn.
lot of rental stores had limited copies of games. My local video store never had copies of new games. Some lowlife would always get there before me, so I had to rely on rare game demo CDs that would sometimes come with new editions of
Yes.
EGM.
Demo discs were such a thing, and yeah, movie tie-in games were shit. A lot of superhero games back then, a decent amount of them were shit. Like, we had our own fair share of games, but no, I missed the demo disc because the demo disc, it was not only just like game demos, we also had like some feature videos and all that dandy stuff to make it worthwhile, but it was basically a way of like, hey, here's these upcoming games, here's some demos we have.
Though honestly, game magazines and rentals wouldn't be that big of a part of game culture as the decade closed out. Netflix and Redbox would put so much pressure on the brick and mortar that they'd be driven out of business just a few years after the 2000s ended.
That's what I kind of miss. I miss demos and shit like that. Like, there's still demos now, but there were more demos back in the day. Or the rare occasion when the demo was full demo. Yeah, that too.
The sun of the 2000s began to set. Games were in a completely different spot than when it started.
That's crazy. 7 year difference. What's 7 years? Holy shit. 9 years. That's
The
crazy.
7th generation consoles were getting mature, and all the big companies were getting ready to release their next systems in the coming years. Systems like the Xbox 360 and the PlayStation 3 now had wireless controls, online functionality, and new tech like Blu-ray players or motion controls or tilt features. Ventrilo was founded, and Steam was making headway, so you could now buy games online and voice chat with all of your friends. Advances in presentation were making games incredibly atmospheric, even movie-like. Iconic titles like Killzone 2 and Uncharted 2 featured beautiful on-rails technology that were some of the first real-time set pieces that I ever experienced. It was now possible to retain control while games came alive in the background, territory once reserved for pre-rendered cutscenes, and a huge leap forward from missions like Stalingrad from Call of Duty 1 just a few years beforehand. Smartphones were gaining momentum, the mobile gaming crave was about to take the world by storm. And gaming had changed. RPGs were getting huge, worlds were becoming open, and sequels were becoming a big thing too. All around the world, people were playing games, at home, online, and in trains going to and from work. In the following decade, games would become so mainstream that you'd no longer be an outcast, leading to even more popularity as streaming platforms would burst onto the scene and once again change the face of gaming forever.
Yeah, gaming was viewed as a very negative thing growing up. Like, people, gamers, even though gamers nowadays still has some, oh, you're a gamer, but it's generally accepted more now than back then. Back then, in like the 80s, 90s, the 2000s, it was rough. It was rough, and all that any stuff, and Wild West essentially. But yeah, it's just. But now, gaming is more accepted, even though there's some shenanigans in the way. You now can find gaming content in streams like this one you're watching now It's crazy how far we come.
There's no denying that the 2000s were, with the 90s, the two most defining decades in all of
Hell yeah,
gaming. No
hell
other
yeah.
period of 20 years would see so much change and transform our culture, its people, how accepted we were, and how we played, shared, and experienced games. It was a time where video games thrived in
Oh
so many
man.
creative ways and where people took a chance on an idea, even though they didn't know if it would work out. Creating a breathtaking handful of years
Yeah.
where games were made through passion creation rather than profit creation. Before games became the commodities that they are today, and gaming culture became what it is now.
Yeah.
Every era has its ups and downs, and modern gaming has given us some incredible titles, but it's also changed so much of the heart of game development that it feels very estranged from this period. The 90s and the 2000s were simple
Ooh, Super
times where
Monkey
gaming
Ball.
was pure bliss. I carried gaming with me through high school and into college, through my entire life, and through all the changes of video game genres and gimmicks and fads. There were so many beloved titles, and I had so many wonderful memories during this time, playing by myself, with my old
Yep.
friends, and with all the new people I met in the
Amazing.
online scene. There were so many memories that it was impossible to show them all in this one video, and that's a sign that the 2000s was where gaming might have been at its best. Thanks for watching. If you have a
Oh,
story to share about your
fantastic
experience in the
fucking
2000s,
video.
please feel free to post it in the comment section below. I'll see you guys in our next video. Peace.
I think, and that were again, he made a fantastic video, and God damn it, Miguel. I think that gaming essentially like the most impact, the most height. I think it was the 2000s. Between 2000 and 2010, I think we had like it was just so many things happened. Like the 90s and 2000s were like so big for for video games in general. I think those were like the top 2 decades. Yeah, yeah, it was a golden age. Like the 90s, like the early 90s, things were starting to form together, but late 90s, 2000s, it was literally the golden age of gaming. And we haven't, and again, like for instance, on Halo 3, when Halo 3 released, it didn't like it was a monumental gaming occasion. Like Microsoft threw so much money into it. Bungie made a fantastic game, and the marketing for it as well was top notch. But it moved not even mountains, planets, essentially, like with everything. And we never saw something like that ever again. You know, with something of that height, essentially, what for a game releasing on a console. So, but yeah, it was nuts. I still remember that seeing over 1 million players on Halo 3 online. That was crazy. And but no, this is an excellent video. So I'll post it up on my YouTube channel for those who missed out. But fucking excellent fucking video. Holy shit.